Alright, so now we're going to start talking a little bit more about the actual process of the scientific method. So as I go through this, I want you to think about the scientific method has several steps. Alright, so through these steps there are certain goals that the scientist is trying to accomplish. In the end, the scientist wants to find the answer to a question. Okay? So if they're trying to find the answer to the question, excuse me, the first step is to ask questions. Notice that I said ask questions, so that's more than one. So what would you think about in this case? Alright? So if you're not sure, you would think to yourself, what do I want to find out? Okay, so this could also be or identify a problem. Sometimes experiments are done when a question comes up about a problem. Okay, so the first step is to ask questions. Why does this always happen when this happens? Okay, so in the scientific method, you would start with a why, how, what. You would start asking questions. Okay, so after you ask questions, you're then going to gather information, and this is also when you start planning and you do research. So when I say research, that does not mean that I'm just going to type my question into Google. I would then break down my question and research more about specifically the object. I would want to become an expert on what my object is that I'm studying. I would research, has anyone else done this experiment? Maybe they got a result. I would need to know and be knowledgeable about what other scientists have done or have not done. Because if you get the same result as another scientist, then that has that evidence has it's good quality. So it's something that would help you answer the question, and it would support your hypothesis. Okay, so this is where you're going to find out what do you already know. So you would ask yourself, what do I already know about this? You want to think about all aspects. Okay, then you're going to research. You're going to read. Your goal is to become an expert on the topic. So let's say you're going to do an experiment on slime. Alright? You would not just look up how do you make slime. You're going to look up what are all of the ways, what are ways that other people have done it, what's needed, what are things that I need to know, what are things I need to make sure that I don't do, things like that. Alright? So you want to research all aspects of it. So the next thing you're going to do, which is step 3, you're going to identify the variables and make a hypothesis. Because now you're ready to do a test. You've done your research, you're ready to test it. Okay? So you're going to identify, decide your independent your control and dependent variable. When you do that, you are setting up your experiment because your independent variable is what you are changing in order to see an outcome or a result. Well, the outcome or the result that you're going to get is your dependent variable, and your control is your constant. In the next set of notes, I'll be going over this specific step and how to do it. Okay, so when you make a hypothesis, you're going to make a prediction based off of what you know and excuse me, and your research. Okay? So you're going to make your prediction. But what you don't want to do is you don't just want to say, I think that this is going to happen. I think the experiment is going to be this. All right? There's a certain format. You want to set it up. That's why you figure out your variables first. Okay? So you're going to use an if, then, because statement. Okay, so if the amount of sunlight is changed, then the plant height will be affected because, and that's where you support it with your research. That's how all of that kind of works together. Okay, so these variables, you identify them first so that you can make your hypothesis, because this is where your independent variable goes, this is where your dependent variable goes, and then this is where your research that you supported. That's why you research before you do your hypothesis. Okay, so let's recap really quick. So we ask questions or identify a problem. We're going to gather information. We're going to research. We're going to learn everything we can about what it is we're going to test. Then we're going to identify our variables. We're going to have one independent variable and one dependent variable. And then we're going to have a control. Things that are going to remain constant, and then we're going to have one that's just going to have normal conditions, okay? So your prediction is your hypothesis, and it's going to be based off of the research and what you already know. Then you're going to set it up. Scientists do not talk in first person, so that's why you would not say, I think that the plants will grow higher. That is very basic and very vague, so you want to be specific. If you explain your independent variable, so let's say an independent variable is we're going to change the amount of sunlight that a plant gets, and how are we going to know if the sunlight affected the plant? We're going to measure the plant height. If the amount of sunlight is changed, then the plant height will increase because plants need, you have researched something about what plants need and the amount of sunlight that they need and how many hours or how many minutes, and you support it with that. That is how you would make your hypothesis. Okay, so you're planning this, you are getting ready to do your experiment. So after that, step 4,